July. Happy 4th of July. I'm Conrad Decker. I'm the owner of Decker's Nursery and Florist, and we're getting ready for the 4th of July weekend. And one of the big questions or reasons that people come to visit us currently, the spring is kind of coming to an end, but there's still a lot of growing season left. And so a lot of our efforts are towards getting people to work on their outdoor living areas, whether it's around the pool or where you dine outside, and trying to get more color into your landscape. So I call it the summertime blues. Everybody's tired of the green. They're trying to get color into their landscape, and that's where a lot of our efforts are. So today I'm going to talk about getting color into your ODL, your outdoor living areas, especially when they're in the shade. So a lot of customers, I get a lot of questions here at the garden center, and they're from all different skill levels. And one of the big misconceptions is they can't get flowers to grow in the shade, or they can't use summer annuals in the shade. And there's some truth to that. Like the real bright colors, there's a lot of flowers that won't tolerate low light conditions. So today we're going to work under the shade of an oak tree. So we get probably 2, maybe 3 hours of sunlight on this beautiful planter that I'm going to work with today. So there's a couple of objectives. I want to get people comfortable in planting flowers and setting up their containers, whether it's a pot or a planter box, whatever it may be. Or whether you're doing a large, beautiful fountain type planting. I want you to feel comfortable in that, knowing that there's not a lot of right and wrong. It's really about achieving what you find appealing and what you like and the color combinations. The second thing I really want to leave you with today is knowing more about the shade annuals that you can use for the summer. Now, all of the summer annuals are going to bloom throughout the growing season. Most of them will go up right until the first frost, which is usually in October here on Long Island. So these flowers are going to continue to perform as long as you care for them, which we'll talk about. But they're going to perform right through September into October, and at that point you can make changes for the holiday, for the fall and the holiday season if you're inclined. So why don't we start by planting this out, and I'm going to introduce you to the flowers that I've selected for this planter today, and I'll show you some of the decisions I'm making. Where I want to start is, for the longest time people thought the only annual you could use in the shade was impatiens, right? And you would buy many flats of impatiens and line them out. People put them in the sun, in the shade, and they did great for years until they got a disease, and there was an entire crop failure about 4 or 5 years ago. Well, the one good thing that came out of that is people had to start looking at other types of plants, and it was really a blessing in disguise, because I feel the plants I'm going to be using today are 100 times more appealing than the impatiens. So it's not saying don't use impatiens, but use them limited or in certain areas. Don't go all in on the impatiens anymore. So with that said, let's get started. So I talked to you about what low light is considered. Shade is considered less than 4 hours of sun, okay? And we're going to start by up at the top. So I'm really planting 3 separate containers today. If you want, you can imagine as this is a 12-inch planter, this is a 16-inch planter, and this would be like a 24-inch planter. So that's a big one. I have another pod here just for scale, and just to show you there's alternatives, okay? So I've decided I'm going to start at the top, all right? Now again, that's not right or wrong, but in this situation, you want to kind of have an idea what you're going to use all the way down. Let me just talk about color coordination, all right? Yes, I do consider colors. I always like to use colors that customers request. You need to figure out what are the colors you like. Are they the hot colors like the oranges and the reds? You know, those are bold or hot colors, what I call hot colors. This is more of a pastel-y orange, or we could go to some pinks even, which are cooler colors. All right? Here's another cool color. All right? So don't get too caught up in coordinating your colors, but try to get an idea what you like. I think that's more important. It makes it easier. Right? I get customers that want to coordinate with the color of the house and the front door, and man, that takes a lot of the fun out of it and makes it a lot more complicated, and it limits the plants you can use also. All right, so I wanted to have something at the top that gives us some height, accents the piece. This is a very common focal point for different planters. You can use this in the sun or the shade. It's a Dracaena spike, and it's very easy to work with, and it just gives you that height and some different textures. I elected to use a lot of begonias today. So there's a lot of different types of begonias. So this is a dragon wing begonia, and it looks a little bit out of scale right now. I could probably get by with 2 of these, but this gets large. This will fill the planter, and that's another thing to consider. You don't have to fill every square inch of your planter. Some annuals are tropical plants. They're going to grow quickly, and they're going to fill in quite a bit. So, you know, try to keep your costs in check a little bit. So I'm actually going to use 1 on this planter and then supplement that with a couple of smaller pieces. And I'm going to use the rosebud impatiens here. And I've elected these because they don't get overly tall. They're not going to compete with the Dracaena. All right, so this is another shade tolerant annual. It's a double impatiens. So the flowers are like the impatiens, but they're doubled up. And it's in between blooms right now. It's getting ready to put another flush on. So this is going to look magnificent by the weekend. Okay, so that fills this. I am planting this container to be seen from one direction, from where you're looking at me. The back of the planter, people aren't going to be back here observing it. So that's another question you want to answer when you're preparing your planter. How is it going to be seen? From one side, 2 sides, or all the way around? And that'll determine, you know, where you place your focal point, whether it's in the center or towards the back, okay? So we have the top layer done. I'm going to come down. These flowers I have been looking at all year, and I love them. I love the color. These are the tuberous begonias, or the non-stop begonias. They perform all through the season. You can see the nice color I have. So I'm going to spread these out a little bit because they're going to get larger, but they're going to fill about 2/3 of this planting area. Okay, in a planter, if I wanted, I could use 2 of those, and that would fill that quite a bit. So again, so these are the Himalis begonias. I misspoke. These are not the tuberous. These are the Himalis begonias. The tuberous begonias, or the non-stop begonias, and I definitely want to get some white into this. So in most of the low light areas, white is a very powerful color. So these are, you go to your garden center or Decker's Nursery and you ask for the non-stop begonias. All right, and these get a little bit bigger. We have these in 12-inch hanging baskets. And anyway, let me get these placed. So I'm going to use these right up in front with the Himalis begonias. So I get a little more separation. And you can see how the white is so effective at showing the color of the leaves, the stems, and everything else is coming out more brilliantly because of the white. Okay, so we have the Himalis begonias and the tuberous begonias. The other type of begonia to consider, and I'm going to use these on the next level, these are the wax begonias, okay? And you buy these in flats, really small, and they become this plant through the growing season. They come in white, they come in pink and red. They have different color foliage, whether it's green or this chocolate color. And I'm going to try to get this white offset so it doesn't run the whole way, and get some white down to the sides. All right, so these are wax begonias. All right, and you're seeing a trend here with begonias. Begonias are the perfect replacement for impatiens, okay? And you have lots of selection amongst the begonias. And don't forget the dragon wings also. Okay, so you see this is starting to come together really nicely. This is another type of begonia. This is the top hat begonia. All right. Some people call these the angel wings. So we have the devil and the angel. A lot of controversy there. All right, so don't get caught up on the names too much, but learn the ones that you like. And while we're on this subject, one thing I wanted to point out, so we bring a lot of shade annuals in hanging baskets. You can use hanging baskets in your planters, right? So if you wanted to put this in a pot like this, it's very easy to do. Here's the best tip of the day. You don't need to fill your pot with soil. You only need soil for about 8 inches up at the top. So if you save these containers, you can use them to take up volume in the base of the pot. And this will keep your costs down. It keeps the weight of the planter down. And it helps with drainage also. It's going to improve the drainage. So you know, hopefully I don't have to remind you of this, but you always have to have drainage in your containers. So there's a hole in the center of each of these layers for the water to percolate out. But you can use these large hanging baskets in a pot, and that would be a nice effect right there. Makes it easy. You don't have to coordinate anything. You know, I guess this is a good time to talk about diversity. You know, the more diverse your plant selection is, the more interest you're going to have. You know, maybe during the dog days, the rosebud impatiens might peter out a little bit, but the begonias will keep going. So the more diversity you have, the more interest and enjoyment you're going to get from it. So I think this is not too busy, but you may. And that goes back to what I started with. You want to use whatever you like. There is no right or wrong, and I know there's people that are going to criticize that comment, and that's okay. As long as you get the light conditions right and you take care of the plants, they're going to perform as they're supposed to. You have to decide if you like it, and maybe this is too busy for some of you. I happen to like diversity, and that's how I'm going to stay. It also helps me to show you all the different flowers. Couple other flowers I wanted to share with you. In the low light, shade conditions. And I showed you the hanging basket. This is fuchsia, all right? And this comes in a lot of different varieties. There's several that will trail over the side of your planter. These are very attractive to hummingbirds. So if you have a hummingbird garden, you may be using these. These will take a little bit more sun, but they are considered a shade-tolerant annual, okay? This habit tends to be more upright, beautiful, dainty hanging flowers. I just think they're gorgeous. I'm not going to use them here today, but it's a summer annual you should consider. The hummingbird attraction is an added perk. Then one of the appeals on the shade-tolerant annuals is the trailing plants. So there's a lot to use. Now, you don't have the wave petunias and the mini bells like you do in the sun, but you do have Terenia. So Terenia is an option for a trailing flower. This could be used in front. Why don't we just, no, that's not going to work, but this is an option. It comes in blue, pink, whites, all right? The very common one, most of you will know this, is Creeping Jenny or Lismachia. This will fill in a lot and trail, and in a month this will cover the whole front of the planter and gives you depth and attractions that really commands your attention to the planter. Some of the other ones are sweet potato vine and vinca vine. So you can see how long the vinca has grown in just a couple weeks. And sweet potato comes in a lot of different varieties. So this is the chartreuse color. It's a very, the margins are cut a lot. It's a thread leaf type leaf. It comes with a broader rounded leaf as well. So this may not look like the sweet potato vine you're accustomed to, but this is one of the options that's available. It works well with Lysimachia or creeping Jenny, and you can use vinca also. And a lot of people, like I plant most of my pots in the spring with pansies, and I start my my trailing plants then. So vinca and sweet potato. Sweet potato you have to wait till Mother's Day, but vinca starts a little early, and you can leave that in through all of the 4 seasons or the 3 seasons. Okay, spring, summer, and fall. All right, so let's get back to the topic at hand. So you've learned a lot about these different types of begonias, the rosebud impatient, the different begonias down here at the bottom. I have to fill in. I need one more piece in there, I think, to really get to fill it up. And you know, and I can obviously plant further to the back. I'm keeping it simple for now. If I wanted to put another larger piece in here, I could do that, and I think I'm going to pass on that. I'm going to use some of the sweet potato and the Lysimachia with the top hat begonias and the wax begonias at the bottom. So I want to get more trailing effect here. Okay, all right, so that's going to be our layout. Hopefully you can kind of envision that. I'm not going to go through planting all of these, but just a quick refresher on how to plant your annuals. Okay, so you want to be very careful taking them out of the pot. At this time of year, there'll be roots coming through the bottom. You want to pull those off so the plant comes out readily. Save your containers for use later. Okay, I score the roots a little bit to get them going out laterally. Right now, they're conditioned to grow in the shape of the pot. So I just make a little score on there. Okay, I'm using a potting mix today, which is a good high quality potting soil. We call it potting mix because it has compost in it. We're using the Espoma brand. Okay, get the dragon wing in. I'll do the same thing with that. I hold the name tags in case I want to remember what I used, or some of your friends are asking you, you want to be able to answer their questions. Okay, and you can see how easy this is. So you want to make sure when you do plant that the soil is getting all the way in. You can see I'm putting some pressure down on that. That's okay. You can be a little rough with them. Just don't break them. And I try to cover it and pat it down. You don't want air pockets in the soil. And if you have a little bit of the root mass is sticking up, that's okay. They'll figure it out. But you're going to get better results by covering the whole root ball. Okay? So this rosebud is going to compete with the scale on this dragon wing very quickly. So I'm not concerned about that. So I think one of the most important takeaways on planting your containers, whether it's summer, spring, or fall, you really want to enjoy it. You know, it shouldn't be a stressful situation. You know, use a good garden center like Decker's, you know, and get the help you need. Make sure you're choosing the proper plants for the light conditions. All right, so that's in. Let's finish the top real quick. So I have a little extra soil here. So here's where the roots have grown through. I either cut them off or pull them out so the plant, I don't have to wrestle with getting the plant out. And again, I want to make sure they're going to grow laterally and get established well. You know, you don't have to work it like I have customers that think you're supposed to get the roots completely loose and free. These are pretty smart plants. They know what to do to take care of themselves, all right? And you can see this root mass is a little taller than the planter itself. So I could take some height off of the bottom, or I can elevate the soil height. And that's what I'm going to choose to do here. All right? But you can see I'm cheating. Some of the root is sticking out at the top. And as long as I keep that watered, it should be okay. But I want to cover as much of it as possible. All right? You can cut the bottom couple inches off of the root ball if you want. I'm going to cut this root. Okay? Don't rip or tear or break. Cut, okay? Use your pruners, and always have pruners with you, okay? So many of you may look at this and feel that it's too high, and again, that's your decision, but I'm not concerned even in the least. The plant's going to utilize the roots that are covered, and it's going to develop those roots to make sure the plant survives, make sure it's straight. Okay, and you can see I'm putting pressure on it. That's okay. Don't feel like you're going to break something with that, but don't, be cautious when you're doing that. Okay, so that's the top tier of the planter. I talked briefly about taking care of and maintaining your plants. So we do recommend fertilizing your plants once or twice a month. We recommend the Espoma brand of Bloom. It's an organic fertilizer. It's not high in nitrogen. That's important. If you go with a high nitrogen fertilizer, you get a lot of top growth, but at the cost of flowering. So we have found that the Bloom gives us a perfect balance where the roots are developed, the plant is healthy, but it's encouraging the flowers to bloom persistently. And that's what you want. These flowers don't stay on for the whole year. They continue to produce more flowers through the year. So as these flowers get tired, you can pick them if you want. Most of these will fall off on their own, and the new buds will emerge so that you constantly have color occurring. So with the Bloom fertilizer, there's a measuring cap in here, so when you turn it over, it gives you a dose for 1 gallon. So on a 2-gallon water can, you would put 2 in there, and that's how you would water and fertilize simultaneously. When you water your plants, water to saturation. Okay, you're going to let the entire soil mass get wet, and it'll start leaking out. Okay, it's starting to leak out of this one. So I know that I have saturated it, and I won't water again until this soil becomes dry to the touch. So another common question is, do I water every day? Do I water twice a day? And the answer is you water when you need it, okay? So what you're going to do is put your finger in up to the knuckle, up to your second knuckle, and you feel the moisture in the soil. So you want this to go dry. That's when the roots develop. When it's saturated, there's no root development occurring. As it dries out, the roots fill in the pore spaces, and that's important, okay? If you keep it wet all the time, you might get some rotting, some root rotting. The plants may not be as vigorous, so you water when it's needed. Don't do it according to the watch or the calendar. Do it according to what the soil and the light conditions require. Okay, that's a very important tip. And if you pay attention to light and water, you're going to be successful. Have fun with the colors. I hope you like my design, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the garden.